Well, Luke, it's really nice to catch up with you again. Here we are in lockdown still. I trust things are going well for you in the Netherlands.
Yeah, certainly it's indeed a difficult time, and the Netherlands is back into some form of lockdown again since today, in fact. So
Oh,
difficult times, but we're coping with it.
it is what it is at these days.
Yeah.
Well, so you're a senior tax partner with KPMG in the Netherlands, but you've just taken on a new role, and I was curious to hear more about it.
Yeah, indeed, it's an interesting role indeed. In addition to my role managing the Dutch corporate clients practice, I've also been asked to play a role in the context of what we call it within KPMG impact, and that's basically consolidation of all the ESG, sustainability, climate change initiatives, and they've basically asked me to basically be the global lead tax partner on impact. So consolidating all the, let's say, tax related items into these propositions.
Well, that's really interesting, Luke, because ESG seems to be really starting to take a more central spot in people's consciousness. What's been happening recently with ESG?
Yeah, maybe one item worth mentioning. As you know, Rodney, at Davos earlier this year, the World Economic Forum's International Business Council launched a consultation on ESG reporting, which is definitely relevant for tax. And this was done in collaboration with all the big four accounting firms and the Bank of America. And from our side, it was Chris Morgan, our head of global policy, who sat in the working group looking at the tax matrix around this report. And the white paper from the IBC was launched a couple of weeks back. It's called Towards Common Metrics and Consistent Reporting of Sustainable Value Creation. And it basically outlines a recommended set of core and expanded matrices. And these metrics in the end need to be disclosed, and basically with the objective to help companies deliver responsible and long-term value for their stakeholders. So that's basically the intention, and definitely relevant for tax as well.
So it is interesting, Luke, because we're both tax partners. What does this mean for tax, do you think?
Well, it is relevant for tax. And in particular around the tax and transparency agenda. And as you know, tax and transparency was already on the radar of many tax professionals over the last couple of years. Also, the in-house tax directors were paying more attention to this. When you look at the IBC white paper that was recently released, you may be aware that the original consultation document that was proposed included a matrix on tax reporting involving full country-by-country reporting based on the GRI methodology. And just to explain that GRI is the Global Reporting Initiative, and it's seen as the most widely adapted standards for sustainable and sustainability reporting. So basically looking at more transparency in line with also the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. And so this white paper originally proposed country by country reporting, as I mentioned. However, this has later been changed and modified into the final report. And the core matrix of the final report on tax reporting is that groups need to disclose the total tax paid globally, split by tax type. So for instance, corporate income tax, property tax, VAT, or other indirect taxes which are borne by the company. And the expanded matrix refers to disclosing tax collected as well as tax borne by the group, and splitting it, let's say, splitting the total paid figure by significant jurisdictions. So not country by country, but significant jurisdictions.
Yes, that's really interesting. Gosh, I sort of think back to when country by country reporting came out, right? There were a lot of entities and a number of jurisdictions, and some folk would put the US in that basket for argument's sake, that just were generally opposed to the notion of just increased transparency in terms of It's a lot of work, costs a lot, doesn't really help people understand things, and some things sometimes are better left unsaid. So I'm wondering if this might go somewhere that way as well, or whether now that C by C is in, perhaps people are more open. But there still is a little bit of reluctance, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, I very much recognize what you're saying, Rodney, and we see many of our clients considering tax transparency reporting, where even some have gone for the full country by country report already. And the majority is still, to be honest, looking and exploring the options for transparency, maybe starting with disclosure of the tax policy and maybe the reporting of tax paid globally. Some, let's say, only include, for instance, tax paid, others also include tax collected, but the amount of transparency will also depend on, obviously, the industry in which you operate. For instance, the banking sector, financial services, and the extractive industries might be more advanced than others because of regulations that already exist for these companies.
Yeah.
Whereas other industries still avoid fuller transparency because of also competition and sensitive information being shared. So there is a mix of, let's say, different approaches for that matter. In my view, there's definitely a call globally for companies to become more transparent as regards their tax reporting. And also because of, let's say, the COVID crisis, because the support that governments gave, well, basically to these businesses will require them to be very transparent on how, let's say, they pay their taxes and where they pay taxes.
And maybe that's just where it's going to go, right? Just given the pandemic, given the amount of governmental support, and frankly, given the need for various governments to get their finances back in order, this is just what's coming down the pike. And so for those that are reluctant in some fashion, really maybe now's the chance to sort of start socializing this and getting more comfortable with what might in fact be possible for their particular entity.
Yeah, I think so.
Which is fascinating, Luke. I'm certainly going to have to catch up with you again. I wish it could be in person, but I just don't know about that. But this is a topic that I can just feel is going to just continue to evolve in people's minds. So thank you for your time, Luke.
You're very welcome, and we see each other soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.